Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him.
Yes. You've basically allowed it through your resiliency wall. I just made that up. Because you've just taken whatever that person said into your mind and then made a choice for it to anger you, because you do have the choice to go, I'm not going to take that in. I refuse to engage in that, or I'm going to ignore that. It all comes down to choice. So you've let it anger you.
I think if you're walking down the street and someone came up to you and said, what the fuck are you looking at, etc., and got really close to you, I think that would be different. If you're getting so triggered by Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Keir Starmer and fucking anything else like that, influencers, Andrew Tate, Piers Morgan, oh my God, aren't they just the worst? That's where I think that quote is very applicable.
Yeah, that's how I was thinking of it. Or, a comment, or a family member says something, or
something of that ilk.
It's within your power to decide how you want to respond to what they said. And how you've interpreted as well what they've said.
Yeah, so I think it applies to a lot of scenarios. Maybe not to the nth degree, like I said. If it's live right there and then, it is more tricky. Equally, retaliating and becoming aggressive back is sometimes a good thing. If someone is threatening you and you show aggression back, they might run away, for instance. But equally, yeah, I think it more applies to the viewpoint of celebrities or public figures.
Okay.
Because I see it a lot on LinkedIn, especially. Can you believe she did that? Oh my God, this is so wrong. Outrage, outrage, outrage. And it's like that famous picture of Prince William where he's doing like the AOK sign, I think. Yeah. But from a certain angle, it looks like he's flipping the bird to people and sticking his middle finger up. From one side of the coin, it's, oh my God, Prince William's swearing at people. From the other angle, it's he's doing that. But people are the amount of people that got so annoyed by it, though. Oh my God, this is so disrespectful. Oh, I can't believe he's done it. Why would he be smiling and swearing at people? Let's get real just for a second. Also, what is making it so frustrating for you? I think it's often a projection of where you're at as a person when you get so angry about something like that.
Yeah, it's where you're at. Yeah, in this context, what we're talking about, of course, yeah. So, yeah, it's like when a coaching question, isn't it? With our clients, we'll say, "Are you going to be angry about this in the next week?" No. So you can choose to just let it go now. That's your choice. So what happens is, what that person has said, or whatever you've read online, or whatever the examples that you gave, Donald Trump, Keir Starmer said this, or whatever, you've let that taken power over you. That's what's happened. You've given all the power to them. So bringing Stoic philosophy into this is it's the dichotomy of control again, and you've now gone outside of the dichotomy of control. You've let things outside of your control affect your inner peace. And bringing the Buddhist wisdom bit into this is that anger and jealousy are delusions of the mind. Now, I'm not saying don't get angry. No. Even Buddhist monks people who meditate for hours on end get jealousy in their mind. But like I mentioned before, it's very short-lived. It could just happen in an instant. Oh, that's a bit annoying. Back to the breath. Done. That's how quick. So it just depends so that links into what you were saying. It depends where you are on your self-development journey and whether you've got those tools in your toolbox to handle that. Yeah,
because I don't think any emotion is necessarily good or bad. It's how long you live in it for, and the quality of your life will be determined by how quickly you can disassociate from those emotions and from those challenges.
Yeah.
Some people, it might be like, for instance, years ago, my depressive states could last days. Then it started going over the last 3 or 4 years, especially. It could be 2 days. Then it might go down to a day. Now I've probably got it down to hours. I still have them. I still have moments where I get really low or really anxious, because I think a lot of that is, some of it's inherited, some of it's genetic. Some of it is just familiar. I've done it for a lot of my life, but it's recognizing when you're in it, accepting it, and then going, I feel like shit, so I'm going to allow myself to feel a bit down today, or be a bit, if I'm overwhelmed or I'm tired. But again, it's becoming more articulate with the labels that you're attaching to things, rather than just depressed, stressed, anxious, angry. Maybe depressed could be, I'm feeling really exhausted. Maybe anxious could be, I'm a little bit concerned by this. Maybe, stressed could be the accurate example, angry, But what I'm saying is, we go to these extremes, and usually it's anxiety or depression very, very quickly, as opposed to overwhelmed, or I felt vulnerable, or I felt abandoned, or I felt rejected, and getting really specific to exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Also, it's when you're in that, like you were explaining then, when you're sort of, you're allowing yourself to feel down or whatever. If you're tired, you're frustrated, and it's allowing yourself to feel it. But then it's also then asking what's most healthiest for me right now in this moment. So you've acknowledged it. I feel like shit. And deploy that curiosity. How come? Well, I shit night sleep last night, whatever, children, blah, 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 stressful situation at work, etc. That's okay. What would be the most healthiest thing for me right now? That, unfortunately, a lot of people then, they think picking up the drink, not alcoholics, but they think having a drink's better. Let's eat loads of junk food.
Scrolling,
where it needs to be like what you just said. Let's just have a nap. Just go put your head down.
Yeah.
You just, especially if it is on the back of poor sleep, just go have a nap if you're able to. Because I appreciate that everyone will be able to do those things depending on the situation where they're at, if they're in the office and things like that. But what's most healthiest for me right now? Actually, do you know what? If it is like the office scenario, let's I'm just going to leave my things and walk out this door and just go for a walk by myself. Gather my thoughts. Hit the pause button.
I remember a few months ago, I was watching the Netflix show of Jeffrey Dahmer. And basically it's a guy who, do you know much about Jeffrey Dahmer?
No, that's what I was doing then. I was processing. I was like, who's that?
So a lot of people will know what I'm referring to, but basically it's a guy that used to drug gay men and then kill them, essentially.
Jeez.
Put them in like tubs of acid and shit like that. Truly horrific. And I remember saying to our coach around that time, we're having a couple of challenges within the business. I was like, oh God, I'm just so anxious. He said, what's happening? I said, oh, this is happening with the business, da 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 da. Is there anything else that's disturbing your peace? Great question, by the way.
Great question. I
said, I don't know. I mean, I guess, by the way, when people say, I don't know, I guess, it's always, that's exactly what it is. I have that with clients all the time. I don't know, maybe it's, or I don't know, I'm guessing it's no, that's it then.
A part of me thinks.
Yeah. So I was like, I think it's, the show I'm watching at the minute is quite dark, actually. He's like, what is it? And I told him, he's like, yeah, it is. I said, what time do you finish watching that? I said, well, I usually go to bed at 10. So, I don't know, finished the last episode at 9:45, I guess, 10 to 10. He's like, okay, I see the problem here. If your last piece of content that you consumed was someone that's basically been drugged and thrown in a pool of acid, might not be the best. So is there a program that brings you some joy? Maybe you could watch one of those episodes and one of something that brings you unequivocal joy, like childlike humour. And I said, yeah, there's a TV show called Brassic. And he's like, watch that then. I started watching it, mate. Honestly, the difference it made just by stopping watching that thing and watching that instead around the time when I was challenged was so key. And I remember being at my mum and dad's house after my ex-partner had broken up with me, and I was literally in Heartbreak Hotel. You know, I'd fully checked in for a couple of weeks, all inclusive. And I remember, I was going through challenges at work at the time. I just lost my auntie and all this other stuff. It was horrendous. And that was one of the lowest points where I felt like it was too overwhelming to pick up the TV remote, even though it was like a foot away from me. That's how bad it got. But I remember just watching The American Office, and at the time I hadn't really watched that many of them. And then I watched some more, and I just started to smile. I thought, wow, what a subtle difference that is. You know, Mum said, oh, you look a lot brighter today after like day 3 or day 4. I was like, because I heard you laughing last night as well, because I just obviously secluded myself in my bedroom, you know, going back to being in my teenage years almost at the age of 30. I was like, yeah, I was just watching a program and it was really funny. And she's like, let's do more of that. I was like, yeah. And I remember Jimmy Carr talking about this. I think it was with Bartlett or Chris Williamson, I can't remember, but he said that there was a guy that came up to him once and he just said, I was at my wit's end, I was about to kill myself. And then I watched one of your videos and I laughed. And it gave me enough hope to change. You know, there was another study, maybe not study, I think it was just an example. I can't remember where I heard it now, a few years ago. There was a dad who had a really bad condition and he was given 6 months to live or what have you. And their mother had also passed a few years before. And the 3 sons just used to go into his hospital thing and just watch comedies with him, but frequently. Anyway, he ended up healing from it all and didn't die, yeah. And they said that even the strength of his heart increased, his cortisol reduced significantly, his blood pressure, his everything, just by spending time with people that he loved and laughing and finding joy in things. And I just found that really interesting.
I think that might be covered in Joe Dispenza's book. Not that one, but similar things of that. One of his books.
Could have been where I heard it. I honestly can't remember, but it was something like that, where I heard it, and I thought, wow, that is really interesting. So, yeah, I guess it's just if you are going through a difficult moment, you'd maybe avoid the murder documentaries. When you're trying to figure out what's healthiest for you.
It fits into you become what you consume, and it's not necessarily it's the mental diet, not the actual food diet, but you become that. So if you are engaging in that all the time, then yeah, you'll become it. I'm not saying that you're going to chuck people in bath, by the way. No, but it's not
go to B&M and just start, yeah.
It's not an uplifting program, is it? It's quite one that puts things into perspective. You're like, fuck, someone has done that to another person, and all the graphics that you see on screen start flicking through your mind. You're like, oh god, yes, that you become that. So it starts consuming you. So that fits into what I speak about a lot about the MEP states. This is now falling into the mental state and assessing that content, what you're feeding every day into your mind. Now, I know obviously you don't feed that into your mind every day, and back then you weren't. It's just you just happened to turn that program on that day and think, oh, this looks quite good, I'll watch this. So something that I do, if I do watch something like that, straight away afterwards I'll watch something funny to lift me up before I go to bed. Yeah, I've got to watch something positive. Just I couldn't fall asleep with that in my mind. However, this actually cropped up with a coaching call recently with a client. And again, we were talking about the content that you're consuming, and is it serving you in a piece or is it not serving you in a piece? And I gave an example of what was in the news in the media last sort of few weeks about the grooming gang scandal in the UK. And I probably went a bit too far in the sense of, okay, saw the headlines, saw everything else, obviously it's on social media, I read some of the transcripts, and that had me for about 2 days. Those thoughts were in my head for 2 days. Not all the time. And I knew I'd sort of self-coach myself. So I know why I'm feeling like this, because I've read the transcripts of what those people were going through, what those girls were going through, and fuck me, it was horrific. And the thing that was going through my head was, how can another human being do that? Obviously, we're coaches, psychology, and that's what I was trying to get my head around. Why would a group of men do that to a 12-year-old? I can't get I can't fathom it. Mm-hmm. So I had to find out. Why. I'm not going to explain what my thinking was, but what I'm trying to say is that consumed me a lot because I read it. So I knew, what I needed to do, more meditation and journaling and get outside, everything else, and spoke through with it, with my wife and and then I think it more hit because I've got children as well, and it's just like, okay, I know I've not got 2 girls, I've got 2 boys, but it's just like, whoa, it hit differently this time because obviously that particular scandal has been in the papers. It was in the papers 10 years ago. It was in the media again 5 years ago, but this time it just kind of like hit differently. I was like, wow. Yeah, do not read the transcripts. Yeah, don't do it. It is. What do you won't sleep for like 2 or 3 days if you read those.
What do you think made you do that? Because that's kind of in line with how we started the podcast. That someone's getting triggered by Elon Musk doing the Nazi salute.
Yeah.
For instance. Now, if it's John from North Yorkshire that works 9 to 5 and has got no attachment to anything close to, Auschwitz and what happened during the wars and all that stuff, the level of outrage, I think, is somewhat not questionable because people are entitled to feel right, but I think it's letting it rock your inner peace that much for days. I remember people commenting. If it's someone that lost a family member going through that horrific time and the Holocaust and what have you, then yeah, you could probably understand it a lot more.
Yeah.
But equally, and I'm not defending Elon Musk here, by the way, far from it, fucking hell, it looked like a Nazi salute to me. It looked pretty horrific what he did because of the gesture and the way that it was dealt and the, everything around it. Well, I don't think it was a picture out of context per se. I also don't know for a fact that it was a Nazi salute. He didn't declare it to be a Nazi salute at any point.
No.
And that's where it is different. In a very, very, very different example, I'm a Man United fan. One of the players, Marcus Rashford, isn't necessarily pulling his weight right now. He's had a fallout with the manager. And the manager said, I would rather have the 63-year-old goalkeeping coach play than have someone that isn't interested or someone that isn't putting in as much effort as they need to. He didn't say, I'd rather have the 63-year-old instead of Marcus Rashford, but that was the title of the Sky Sports headline.
Yeah.
Amarin prefers goalkeeping coach to Marcus Rashford. No, that's not what he said. The implication was there. The implication may have been that from Elon Musk, for instance. So I guess my question is, what made you, on the interest of content and it not rocking your inner peace and stuff, what made you want to read those articles?
I didn't read them all. So it's like pages and pages, hundreds of pages. But human psychology, and being a coach, and being interested in human behavior, I needed to know why. What was the reasoning? How can someone do that? That's what I needed to understand. Because in their mind, they think it's right. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. That's how I came to sense with it. I'm
quite surprised you allowed that you did that.
And that's what I say. It consumed my mind, not for the whole day, but for 2 days. Those thoughts were coming in. Not all the time, of course. No, not all the time. But it was after 2 days, then it was gone. It didn't come up again, type thing. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's why I wanted to sort of understand it. And I suppose bringing in like the resiliency piece here is more. I thought, I can read it because I can take it. So it's like, I'll be all right. Yeah, when you read it, it's like, oh, that is not good.
Dark.
Dark, very dark.
Yeah, so it brings us nicely onto the question that we're going to cover today. And it's a really simple one, actually, but I was on a podcast, I was on a podcast the other day, and they asked me this question. I thought it was great, and we've also been asked this a few times as well. What does it mean to be resilient? And my response was the capability to endure. And it was quite a progressive podcast because there was 4 people that I've never met before. The 4 of us in total, 3 people I've never met before. We each gave our opinion on it. And the woman that was on there said, I found that answer interesting, and that's the common one that people go to. But that's not resiliency. That's a choice to suffer. You don't have to endure. You shouldn't have to endure things. And I said, oh, okay. What would your sort of reframe be? So I don't think that's what resilience should be labelled as. I think, yes, it's the ability to overcome things, but not to endure it.
Yeah.
And I thought, right. But I also think that resiliency implies to a lot of people anyway that it's about you and just you, and you have to get through this. But my version of it was, I think that's true. It is your responsibility. However, it's also key to have other people around you and bringing you up and supporting you with the challenges that you go through. Because if I, just relied on resiliency at the time of my rock bottom, I probably wouldn't be here, quite frankly.
Yeah, because it feeds into your willpower, isn't it, when you're at your rock bottom? My view on it is how quickly you can bounce back. Bounce back. Sorry, Alan Partridge.
Bounce back ability.
Yeah, it's how quickly you can recover from a situation. Now, of course, there's horrific things that happen to people. Personally, this is just personal experience, but the way that I built and continue to build resilience, and where a lot of the resilience has come from, especially in the early days of self-development, was chasing the ultras. Now that actually kind of feeds into what the lady was saying on your podcast the other day. Do you need to continue with the pain to endure it? So when you were saying that, I immediately thought of the ultras that I've run, and it was painful. But I was enduring it because I knew it was going to make me better at the end. So I knew I had to go through that thing. So when those thoughts came in, and in the middle of the ultra, you're at mile 40 or whatever, and you're out of water and everything else, and fucking hell, there's 10 miles to go, and you're like, I really want to quit, everything's hurting, your back's hurting, you've got no food left, it's fucking pitch black, whatever, all the ultra stories that you hear, your feet are all messed up and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I chose to be here. And you have to remember why I'm doing this in the first place. But in that particular scenario, it's because I knew it was going to make me a better person. And then I can transfer that into everyday life things. But that's that scenario. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know, if you're being resilient, let's say there's a scenario, and I'm just trying to think of a scenario, but you're involved in...
I'll give you one.
A crime scene, and you're at a murder. I don't know, I'm trying to think of a scenario.
No, I'll give you one. So, it's actually really interesting. I watched there's a documentary, but there's also a drama around the Lockerbie disaster, where there was
Lockerbie bomber.
I honestly, I'd never heard of it. Genuinely, never heard of it. No, never heard of it. Obviously, it happened the year I was born, but I'd never heard of it before. So, but I find it really interesting. Now, the father that had lost the daughter that it's about, I thought this is again the psychoanalysis, right? On the one hand, from what you're saying, the definition is, and I agree with you, it's your ability and how quickly you can bounce back from setbacks. That could be one level of resiliency. He never really stopped. And you can see it through the program where his wife was like, you just haven't taken this in. Because he kept fighting. He's been fighting the good fight for 20 plus, 30 plus years
what's
for justice.
Doing, charity and stuff, or getting justice?
Probably haven't explained it very well. So he was activist, campaigner, etc. But he also wanted to find out what happened. So he'd gone balls deep into this. I mean, he went to go see Colonel Gaddafi.
Wow.
That deep.
That far.
And he has arrived to everybody pointing guns at him the whole route from the airport to the meeting, feeling very intimidated and what have you. But he just did not stop in the pursuit of the truth. So I thought, oh my God, he's so resilient. But then equally, he hasn't dealt with it because he's not acknowledged almost the passing and he hasn't let it lie. And that's what his family were getting so frustrated with. Like, you need to just let her go.
Yeah, he's not
grieved.
Well, he's not grieved. Well, I don't know. Did he grieve?
But this is, it gets to the end and they're all, all the family are on a beach together and they're all playing Happy Families and whatever. But the long and short of it was that on the one hand, he was extremely resilient because he didn't fucking stop. And he's like, I am going to find out what happened here. This absolute atrocity, this unbelievable injustice that we've all experienced. So there was hundreds of people that died. Yeah. It wasn't just him that lost somebody. And it was. I just found that really interesting. But I also agree with your point where you say it is your ability to go through something shit and how quickly can you respond to it could also be classed as resilience. So I think it's a wide subject, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is a wide subject. Yeah, and I think it's going to be a bit subjective as well. Like what works for someone else might not work. What works for someone might not work for someone else. Because we sometimes get asked the question very linked to this: is how do I build resilience?
I think it's doing hard shit.
I think it's doing hard shit, exactly that. And I actually talk about this in one of our courses, the A-Game Way course, like answering that exact question. And the first one is do difficult things on purpose. Yeah. So for me, that's always fitted in nicely with the Stoic philosophy side, having the courage to do challenging things, put yourself in a challenging scenario on purpose. Now, I'm not saying run into that building that's on fire and go save someone. No, I'm not saying that. No. It's the day-to-day stuff. I found it in the endurance stuff, getting up at silly o'clock to go out and run long runs. No one was forcing me to do it. Mm-hmm. There was a bit of an addiction in there, of course. Now I find it through, like CrossFit, for example. I'm pushing myself through that, and have done over the years. So it's and the reason why those little bits are important is because then you can compare it to when scenarios happen in everyday life. So I gave you an example last night, didn't I? So with our second child, we're going through sleep training. And any parent listening to this and sleep train their child will fully understand what I'm talking about. Obviously, it affects your sleep and everything else. And then there's a habit forming now with Luca, my youngest, and he's waking up at like 5:15, and I'm on that shift. Okay, so the monitor's passed to me after the midnight feed, and then it's down to me then. And that at first I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Right. But then I quickly processed. I was like, hang on, Adam. This is nothing. I used to wake up. The earliest that I've ever woken up to go out for a trail run was 3 a.m. Mm. And that was when I didn't have any children. So I've already built up this. This is, and you're waking up 45 minutes earlier just to sort out to help your baby out. Like, it's just like, I'm getting frustrated by it. But it all happened very quickly in my mind.
Yeah.
This is nothing. It's like when COVID hit and people went into not necessarily meltdown, but it really did affect them. I'm not going to say like family, they couldn't see family and stuff, but people were really affected by staying inside, that bit. I remember one of my coaches at the time said, hey, he sent out a message on his social media, and hey, we didn't train you for the last amount of years we trained you to deal with this shit. Mm-hmm. This is what we've been doing. I was like, and that's how it sort of like fitted in my mind. I was like, of course, this is what the training is. And that fits in with the Stoic philosophy side, like put in the work, like you're saying, put in the graft. That's how you build resilience. Book a challenge, book yourself on a CrossFit competition, train for the marathon, go for the PBs in the gym, really push yourself and think and set a goal that scares the shit out of you, whether that's in your business or something which is physical and is going to challenge you physically and mentally, and set a goal that you don't think that you can achieve just yet.
Yeah, because when you do have the argument with your partner, or when you do get the setback at work, or when you don't land that client deal, you have the tools to be able to now handle those situations in a much more efficient way. And as you've alluded to there, you know, when I think of the depths of the pain and suffering that I've endured, and then you go through a challenge in the business, you're like, fucking hell, is that it?
Yeah.
You're joking.
But at first it does hit you like, oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah. But then you start to process it and go, oh, this is nothing actually.
Yeah, Eric Thomas talks about this as well. It's a phrase that he has. It's called lay hold of it. Yeah, he's like, some of you in this audience have been sexually abused, and now you're going to fucking quit.
Yeah.
When the boss speaks to you in a certain way, and you've gone through that. No. Some of you have gone through a traumatic divorce, and you've lost everything. And now you're going to get frustrated about, can I go to the gym or not? No. Lay hold of it. And I absolutely love that phrase.
Yeah, I love
that. Next time you're going through a difficult moment, it could be that you are in the gym in the middle of a workout going, fucking hell, this is hard. Lay hold of it.
Yeah,
I'm stronger than this. I am better than this. I can, I will, I must get through this. See you next week.